Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at making a chair in Maya that we can use inside of a game scene. And here is an example of what that chair is going to look like. It's going to be kind of a low poly, so basically something that's easily to put in. We're going to create it in Maya. It's going to be some simple shapes, put it together, and then we're going to set up the UVs, put some materials on it, and then export it into Unreal Engine. And inside of Unreal Engine, we'll apply some of our Quixel materials through Bridge onto it to kind of give it an appearance of kind of a leather look, or whatever it is you want to, whatever material you find that you like to use. But at this point, this is what it looks like in my game, and we're going to go through this process. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me back out of Unreal Engine here and go ahead and open up Maya. Okay, so in Maya we're going to start with this, go ahead and get rid of this title here. Let's see here, go back to this, there we go. And again, if you want to find some of my other animation or video game design tutorials, you can find them here at my YouTube page or my YouTube channel at Paul Fritz Animation. And if you like what you see, please subscribe. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So here in Maya, I've got just a regular default scene. So let's go ahead and turn this into a project first, like we should be doing every single time. So I'm going to go ahead and go to File, and I'm going to go to Project Window, create a new project. I'm just going to call this one Low Poly Chair. And I'm going to leave all this other stuff default down here, but I am going to change my location. Something to put it actually onto my computer. E drive. And at this point I don't have a folder to put it in. Just set up this new drive. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and select this folder. It's going to be a created low poly chair inside of my Maya projects folder. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And just to make sure, I'm going to go ahead and then set my project to this. Select my project folder, set that. And now I'm going to go ahead and save this scene right at the beginning before I even get started. So I'm going to save scene as, and again it's going to go into my project, into my scenes folder, and I'll just call this low poly, maybe I'll just make that one word, chair. Okay. Alright, so now we're all set. We should be ready to go. And I'm just going to start with just a basic, simple cube. So I'm going to go ahead and select the cube. I'm going to now hit R on my keyboard. You can also select up here any of these tools here. For scaling, this is the scaling tool. And I'm going to grab this little square right here and I'm going to drag it up in the plane, kind of make the whole thing a little larger. Narrow it down just a little bit, maybe. Make kind of like an arm width. And we may come back and adjust this a little bit later. But for a start, that is going to work. For the side of the chair. We'll modify it as we go along if we need to. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I want to bevel all of these edges to give them kind of that rounded edge look for this particular part of the chair. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to right click and go to edge. I'm going to do a marquee select. I'm going to select all of the edges since I want to bevel every edge together onto this and give it kind of that rounded look. We could maybe leave the bottom ones flat, but kind of like rounding those out a little bit too. So I'm going to go ahead and once those are selected, if you hold the shift button down and right mouse button click. You'll see that bevel edge is one of your choices. Select the little option box here to the right, and I'm going to maybe have to play around with this a little bit. So mine are at default. If yours are not at default, you can always go back to default by clicking on the edit and select reset settings. And I'm going to change my segments to something like 3. And width right now is at 0.5 with the overall depth of 1 unit. Do this fractional. I'm going to see how this looks. So I'm just going to slide this off to the side. I'm going to hit apply. And actually that's not too bad. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with that. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and take this particular object and I'm going to go ahead and set up the UVs. Maybe a little premature. We'll see how this works out. As we go to adjust it, we may have to make some adjustments to the UVs a little bit too, but it might be easier to do that, get everything split, and then just adjust them a little bit later than trying to have to do every single one of these, especially since this side is going to be mirrored by the other side. So once we get everything kind of in position and shaped the way we want, then we're definitely going to have it all set up the way it should be. So I'm going to go ahead and close my bevels right now. Hit Q to quit that tool. And I'm going to go ahead and just open up my UV editor. And you can see that it's going to automatically create these UVs. It's not exactly what we want it to be, so we're going to have to fix this. Let me go ahead and turn off my grid so we can see it a little bit better. You can see it's kind of laid out like that. This is not what we want, and the biggest reason why it's not like what we want is because first thing we didn't do is we didn't freeze our transformations. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to move that out of the way. Right click, go to object mode, select this. I'm going to go to edit, delete by type. I'm going to delete my history right off the bat, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to modify and freeze my transformations. Okay, and now once that's done, I'm going to go to create. I'm going to do automatic for my UVs, and that should work out a little bit better. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Okay, we can see that it's cut the edge along the center there and along that center point there and down along here. But because of the way the bevel is right here, we're going to have some stretching and some deformation. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Go ahead and pull in, turn on my checkers, put that back out of the way again, and we can see that it's not terrible, but there's some stretching right along here, especially right in this area here. They're kind of shrunk a little bit, so they're not exactly the shape they should be, I think. We can really tell that if we turn on some of these tools here. Oh, that's the wrong one. So if I turn on that tool, it should be able to tell us what our stretching looks like. And it's really not that bad. So if we had like pink and red, it really wouldn't look so good, but yeah. Turn that tool back off. Make sure I'm not getting any interference with that tool. All right. Actually came out pretty decent. I thought we were going to have to at least split them right here. I think we probably should anyway. So we're going to go ahead and kind of put some cuts along the corners to kind of allow this to lay just a little bit flatter. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and select my edge. And right here along this seam here, I'm going to select it there on each one of these. Right at that seam point seems like a good place to go ahead and put that in. And there we go. Down here, do the same thing. Oh, that's why I didn't want that one. Okay. Let me Make sure I didn't select any of the ones yeah, not sure what happened here. All right, let's try this again. So I'm not sure how I did that, but somehow I managed to select the entire loop. Not what I was going for. Bought a new wireless mouse. That's one of those ergonomic ones because my wrist was beginning to hurt really bad, and I know I'm kind of whining here, but just can't seem to get the hang of this new mouse. Feel of it just isn't quite the same. See, I did it again. Not sure why, but let's just go ahead and if you can cut them, go ahead and cut them without having to worry about it. I am just going to do this a couple at a time, I guess. And so with this tool here, I can go ahead and hit my cut tool. Just cut it. And once you select that tool, and after you cut the first time, it's a little bit easier because then you can just select a few and then hit the G key and it'll repeat the last command that you had. So maybe that was the whole point of this, was me to just tell you that. I hit G again. G again. And let me just make sure I got all those cut the way I want to. All right. So with those cut, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into here and select all my UVs. I'm going to go to UV shell, select all these, and I'm going to unfold them right here under unfold. Okay, and you can see it kind of changed things up a little bit. And what it's done is it's alleviated this corner right here, so it lays a little bit more flat, just like if you were cutting a piece of upholstery or cloth. And we've got some overlapping happening with these as well. So the next thing I probably want to do is I'm just going to shrink them down just a little bit so I can kind of move them off on top of each other. There we go. All right, so that should be getting the initial UVs set up, and let's go ahead and continue on making our chair now. Now, we may have to come back and revisit these because I also want to smooth this at the end, and it may change our UVs just a little bit. We'll take a look and see what that looks like. All right, so now I've got my first cushion kind of laid out, my first edge of my chair. I'm going to go back to my object mode. I'm going to push this one off to the side just a little bit. Kind of out this way. Quit whatever tool that was. Try this again. Turn off my, there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and try this again. Let's go ahead and move it over. Something like that. I'm just going to kind of center it on that one for now. Using the grid just a little bit to try to get a visual, see how things are looking. Probably not going to leave it there. I'm going to do a Control D to duplicate it. So Control D to duplicate. Don't do a cut and paste. Control D. You don't want to create all these issues with our sides here. And in fact, we need to start getting to the point of naming these as well. So this is going to be the chair right arm. Actually, I think I want to call it chair arm right. And then copy this. And paste it into here and call this one chair arm left. Okay. All right. Now for the base of the chair, we'll probably end up creating a new cube and getting that set up differently. So we're going to have to UV that one as well. But I'm going to see how far we can get with just manipulating these particular sides that we have right here. And Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and Control D this one again. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to rotate this one down. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees downward to make this kind of the base cushion, and then I'll adjust everything around it after I get the dimensions the way I like it. So I'm going to hit E on my keyboard. I'm also going to take a look at this right here to help me kind of get my rotation exactly the way I want it. I'm going to start to rotate it this way. If you can't tell which one that you're trying to rotate this on. So I'm rotating this down. It is on the Z-axis, because if we take a look down here at our little gizmo, see the Z-axis is the one that's pointing forward, and that was the blue line that we grabbed right there, and you can verify that by looking right here. And it's rotating in the negative direction. I want it to be negative 90 degrees. Okay. And I'm going to scale this in just a little bit this way. I've got a little bit of overlap, which I don't really want right now. This. Okay. You can tell I don't have these specific or perfectly adjusted, but that'll work as a start. Again, this is going to be a cushion, so it shouldn't actually be embedded in there. Now, the next thing I want to do is I do want to give this cushion some kind of deformation here in the middle, and kind of a little bit more fluffiness, and then just sort of this kind of flat dimension that it has right now, because this is a part of the chair cushion. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add in some cuts. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me turn that off. So I don't have to keep looking at it. There we go. All right. So, and what I just did, so I have my UV editor still open. I had this selected, which was what was creating that kind of the white dimension, the white coloring on my, this was what we were looking at to see if there was deformation. So red, blue, white. So I'm going to just click on it again to get rid of that. And this is to tell us which way our UVs are facing. Blue is what we want to see. Red is the inverse side. So we want to see blue, usually. Now it depends on the model you're working on, of course. And then by selecting the one at the very end, it turns everything back to normal. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my additional edge loops in here so that I can have enough vertices so that I can start to kind of deform that center area of the cushion to kind of look like it's. First, what I want to do is I want to puff everything up, give the cushion some puffiness, and then I want to kind of deform the inner piece of it to make it look like it's been sat in for a little bit. Just every so subtle, but enough to kind of give it a little bit of a worn look to it. So again, in the object mode, so right-click object mode. Okay, I'm going to hold the Shift button down, right-click, and I'm going to select the Insert Edge Loop Tool option box right there. And what I want to do is I want to use multiple edge loops, and in this case, I'm going to use 4. That's what I have on here already. And actually, I think I'm going to make it an odd number. I'm going to go with 5. It could be 3, it could be 5. I'm going to try 5, and that's going to give me this kind of a center point right here that I can work with. Okay, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to click on it from the opposite side over here and put in 5 this direction as well. So now what I've done is I have these vertices in between here that I can now kind of grab and manipulate a little bit. And what I want to do next is I'm going to hit Q to quit this tool, so I don't want any more edge loops in this one. What I want to do is I want to select these areas here, but what I want to actually do is instead I want to select it by vertices, and I'm going to select this center vertex here. I'm going to leave this bottom side flat. In my prototype, I made it, I also deformed it so that it was more cushiony shape, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense for the bottom side to be like that because we're going to have it sitting on a solid surface, and having that kind of cushiony up effect isn't really something I want. I want it to look cushiony, but I don't want it to look odd on the bottom either. So by selecting this center one and then hit B on your keyboard, and what B does is it turns on soft select. And so hitting B on or off turns on this soft select tool. And you can see here that yellow is the highest point of influence, and then it tapers off to these different red colors. Now, if you hold the B key down on your keyboard and use your left mouse button, you can drag your mouse in. So again, the B button and the left mouse button, and if you drag it in and out, you can see that you're influencing more and more area. And since I want this to kind of puff up from the center, I'm going to put it out. I'm going to try this and see what this looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to hit W on my keyboard. What's going to happen is it's going to pull a little bit more influence from the middle, and then sort of like if you're pulling on your skin or something like that, you start to kind of pull up and there's this influence. Or if you pull on cloth, I don't have an example of cloth here, but so we're going to go ahead and try that and see what this looks like as we start to pull in. We may need to change the way we're doing this a little bit, and yeah, I'm not really, so this is turning more into a bump than into kind of what I was envisioning. So what I think I need to do is, in order to get that cushiony effect, I need to grab all the way out to these outer areas here and influence those just the same. And you can see I'm also influencing it on the bottom side, which is not what I want to do. So I'm going to hit Control Z, undo all that, and I'm going to try this again a little bit differently this time, I think. And we may need to use it instead of the W tool. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to hit B. I'm going to influence outward a little bit more, kind of like this. It's going to affect a lot of stuff. Now, the other thing we can do is we can adjust the way the influence is actually working on the tool. So if we double click on our tool that we have open, and we can go to our soft selection right here, we see that with this tool settings, down here under soft selection, there are different ways that the fall off works, and we can also adjust the fall off color. We can make our own custom by adding or changing these colors down here. There are these preset curves. So right now we have this gentle kind of curve like this. We can influence and change it differently. This is kind of an inverse curve where I have less influence here in the middle and more influence as we go out. And I'm going to end up probably readjusting everything, and let's just see how this works. Okay. It's a little bit more of a linear line. Let's just kind of see what the curves look like with this. And I'm going to go back in and I'm going to reduce this down. And let me go ahead and do it from the top. And I think what I might want to do, yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select several points. And this is going to expand out my influence from the center here. And we're almost where I want to be. So kind of a square here in the center. If you can see, I have all these here in the center area selected. I'm going to influence right out to the edge here. The fall off is a little bit more solid around the edge here. So let's see what this looks like. And I'm going to hit R on my keyboard and pull it. So what's going to happen is I am going to end up pushing this cushion down here on the bottom, but that's okay. We can compensate for that when we go to model. And okay. Well, there's a couple ways we could handle this. Because I rotated this negative 90 degrees when I did this, it's actually going to influence it downward. And that's okay. We're going to go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to rotate this. We could try to rotate the tool. We could go in. We can change our settings here to world settings. So, if I did that here, world, it flips it back around. But I'm going to leave it to object, because what I really want to do is I'm also going to use this same cushion for the back of the chair. Just go ahead and just pull it out just a little bit, give it some cushiness. Good, that kind of fluff up look. There we go. And that's working okay down there. Maybe a little more kind of an overstuffed look. Because what we're going to do is we're going to end up grabbing this here in the center and we're going to kind of push it back down a little bit, make it look like it's been sat in quite a bit. All right, so that's the start, okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to try to just push down the center area right in these sections right here. So what I'm going to do is manually, I'm going to hit the B key, turn this off. I'm going to quit that tool for a second. I'm going to grab the actual areas I want to push down. Hit the B key again. Hold the B key down and pull my influence in quite a bit. R again. Let's see, is it doing what I want it to do? No, not really. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull the W down. Okay, so let's try it this way. Let's go ahead and just grab these here in the center. There we go. It's kind of giving the cushion kind of a curve here. That's what I was going for. Kind of looks like the shape of someone's butt sitting in it. Of course, we've also influenced it down here as well. I'm going to keep that in there, and then when we put it on the platform, this is actually going to be inside the platform, but we still have this kind of push down appearance across the front of the cushion that we'll be seeing, and I think that's a look that we're going to want to have. We can always come back and adjust it later. All right, so now let's go ahead and quit this tool. To quit it, I'm going to close this out, go back to object mode, select my cushion, and right here I'm going to take that negative out from in front of it and flip that cushion around. So now it's facing the direction we want it to go. We've got some kind of wear look in the front of our cushion, and that's a good start. And now what I want to do is go ahead and grab that, Control D to duplicate it, W to pull up on it, and I'm going to rotate this forward just a little bit because I want that wear to go down that direction. We may have to reshape this a little bit as well. I'm not going to quite go 90 degrees on this. I'm thinking maybe we want this kind of be like an easy chair. So maybe 60 on that. Maybe 70. Yeah, that might work good. Pull this back. Okay. Now let's see how this is going to work on the scale. See, it looks like it should work okay. Because we left this tool object oriented, our gizmo here is actually in line with the direction of our cushion. If we had changed it to world, we would have had some issues with the way that we would have been able to squish this down. We want to make sure we keep this in object mode. I'm going to pull that down a little bit, up just a little bit. Again, let's change this to object mode. So it's up just right about there. Okay. So I'm going to push this down into the cushion just a little bit. This is what I was talking about. We may have to make some adjustments on these side pieces here. Okay. Get this cushion the way I want it first, and then we'll worry about that. And really, I think maybe pulling the cushion down here in just a little bit, it's going to solve this problem for us. Now, I think that'll work. Got some good wear back here on the back of the chair as well. Got my cushion right up against the edge. A little bit of it overlapping, like a cushion will push against each other. We'll see how that's going to look. Okay. And I don't know, I'm still thinking we've got too much depth here. Now I am kind of eyeballing this, but I did go online and use some pictures online to kind of give me a reference, and that's kind of what I recommend for you to do too. You can certainly always Google whatever it is you're trying to create, and in this case I'm going to switch this back from object to world by pulling it forward this way. Getting there, but I just think we still need a little bit more of this being pulled in just a little bit more. I'm also wanting to leave a little bit of this edge away from the end there. Let's go ahead and try that now. There we go. We got the chair kind of lining up in the back. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a back for the back of this chair, a back for the back of the chair, and also that piece that I was talking about under here. And I'm going to use these edge pieces here, okay? And I'm going to duplicate this, pull that off of there. I'm going to rotate it. Now this needs to rotate along the Y, so right here, so this is X, Y, and Z, these three right here. And I want to rotate it 90 degrees. And this is something we're probably going to have to scale to fit in, particularly since I don't want it being as tall as these other side ones here. I have a little bit of gap on the bottom. And let's see here. What I really want is these arms to come out on either side of this. So this, they are going to have to be expanded just a little bit. So I'm going to pull this in, fine tune it here in a minute. So there's a couple different ways that we could do this. We could expand it this way, but I would have to then adjust everything back and forth. The other way we could do it is we could go to vertices. Since I have both of them selected, I should be able to also select these vertices here on both of these. And I'm going to do a marquee select of those vertices along the edge there. Turn off the soft select, so hit B to make sure you don't have that soft select look, and hit W. And I'm going to pull these out just a little bit to kind of line up with the back of that. I do need to pull this back out just a little bit, so I'm gonna, of course I can also thin this back one out a little bit. It doesn't need to be quite as thick. Again, I've got the back of this cushion kind of showing through right there. This is where I'm going to end up needing to adjust that. This section right here, when I created this indent, of course we created this push out on the back side here, and this is going to be noticeable here. So what I'm going to do is, with that cushion selected, I'm going to hit Control 1. I'm going to select these vertices right in here. Start to push them back in a little bit. The bottom ones aren't really so critical as the top ones are the ones that are actually being seen, but fix this real quick. Alright, so I'm going to go back to my object mode. And what I did was I hit Control 1, if I forgot to mention it. Control 1 hides it or isolates the object that you're working on, and then Control 1 will bring everything back. Okay. And that'll work. Push this in just a little bit. And over. I do want a little bit of overlap on these since they are supposed to be connected. So I may have to expand it just a little bit. All right, there we go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video right now. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to create this bottom piece down here. I want you to take a shot at doing it yourself. I'm going to pause. I'm going to create it myself without adding more minutes to this video. We're already at 38 minutes. And I'm going to create that bottom piece. And I'm also going to UV that piece. So what I want you to do is I want you to try that yourself on your own. Create the bottom piece. You can make it out of a simple cube. Don't even need to actually round that one, bevel it, unless you really want to. And then don't forget to UV it. And once I turn the video back on, I'll have it completed and I'll show you what I did and I'll kind of explain it just a little bit. That way you can kind of see if what you did is the same, or if you like what you did better, then keep it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause and then be right back. Okay, welcome back. So hopefully you've got that little task done. Again, all I did was just use a simple cube. I expanded it to fit in. I overlapped it into the edge here, and I pushed it back so that it's lined up with the cushion. And it goes into the back a little bit as well, but that's fine. It's not seen. Make sure it doesn't puncture through it on the back here. And I set it up so that, let me turn these off here. I set it up so that the cushion lays right on it, and you can kind of see that deformation right here that we had earlier along the edge of the line for the wear. Okay, so again, also did the UVs, so I just selected it. Don't forget, you need to delete the history and freeze the transformations in order for it to come out correctly. So again, modify, freeze transformations is right there. Okay, edit, delete by type, history. And then your UVs, since I just did a simple square, it should come out, or a cube rather, should come out something like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and select those and just shrink them down just a little bit. Typically it likes to lay them right on the very edge of the UV area, and I want to have just a little bit of a gap. Okay, and these, because I didn't bevel the edges or anything, I'm not going to worry about alleviating the corners because it made them perfectly, you know, rectangles and squares. So I think we're good with that. And don't forget to save. All right, so the next thing I want to do is make a real simple foot for these. Kind of like I had in that scene here in the Unreal Engine scene. I have these feet sticking down underneath them here. So I'm going to do that same thing. And these are actually longer. That gives me some options to how high I want these to be. I can put them higher or lower. And since they're going to sit down inside of a floor in a game scene, you're not going to see the rest of it anyway. You could also come back in and specifically make them the right shape and length and then provide a little bit more detail if you wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. So basically all I did, again, was set these up using a cylinder and shrinking it down significantly, obviously. So first what I did is hit the R key, grab the little squares on the side, and you can pull them in like this and get it down to the diameter that you want it to be. And then you can push in on it. This cylinder that I have here, if you go to your P-cylinder shape, P-cylinder 1, sorry, polycylinder 1, you can select your subdivisions. Mine are set at 40 to give it a little bit more of a rounded look. But this does significantly increase the number of triangles that you have in it. But again, I don't have any subdivisions in the height because we're not going to need them since I'm just making this a tapered leg from the top to the bottom. So that does help. And you can adjust the number of subdivisions in the cap as well. Again, I only have one. What I'm going to do is go to my vertices, select this here, and again, I'm going to select the, from looking down, I'm going to select this one here, and I'm going to taper it in so that we kind of get that style of leg. Going to go back to my object mode. I'm going to kind of put it in a position. To see what it looks like. That's the full length of it right there. Okay. So again, if we take a look at the UV with it selected, you'll see that the UV is still in the original cylinder shape. What we need to do is delete by type history, not that it has a lot of history in it. We're going to go ahead and modify, freeze the transformations, and then with the UV shell selected, I'm going to go ahead and select everything. Go to create automatic, and it creates these UVs for me that are, to me, look pretty correct. I'm going to leave them facing up and down like this because these are going to be difficult to see. They're going to be down on the floor, and I'm going to give it a wood texture or a metal texture so it wouldn't really be noticeable, the grains and stuff. They are going up and down in both of these directions, so whatever grain, whether it's metal or wood, it would look correct anyway. And then this, of course, is the top and bottom, which aren't going to be seen. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go back to my object mode, select it, hit Control D, W to move it. So I'm going to duplicate it, move it, line it up here. Select the other one, Control D both of those, pull them to the other side, get them lined up. And you can certainly change the scale of yours, they don't have to be identical. And all right, so there we go, we have that completed. So next thing we need to do is just kind of modify our UVs, make sure they're correct for the rest of the chair, since we did do some modifications on these as well. Now, one thing we want to do on both of these, because what we did was we grabbed these vertices and we pulled them back. What we want to do is we want to go to modify, and we want to center pivot with it selected and put it back in the center. We're going to do the same thing for the other side, modify, center pivot. All right. And we're going to pull up the UVs for these. And I'm going to go to UV shell, unfold it so that it actually takes on the shape of what it should be. We're going to have to remodify the way these are laid out. So again, I'm going to scale them down just a little bit. Make sure you select them all at the same time. Grab these, move them up out of the way here. And may need to adjust them just a little bit so everything works correctly. Probably just put this one down here. It should work. And double check to make sure that everything looks okay. All right, so this is looking pretty good so far. Go ahead and rotate it just a little bit. Whoops, rotating the wrong thing. Let's try to square that up just a little bit. All right, so that's the same process we need to do for all of the UVs. So I'm again going to pause the video and going to go in. Now the only one you probably don't need to do that to is this base that we did. But all the other ones, since we modified these cushions and the sides, we need to go in, adjust your UVs just like I did. You can unfold it, so click on it, hit the unfold button. Make sure everything's inside the 0 to 1 square for the UVs like it was supposed to be. And the 0 to 1, what I'm talking about if you're not familiar, is if I zoom out and let me turn off this grid here. See right here we have these grid shapes. We have these big blue lines. But right here we have this green and red. This is the 0 to 1 UV square that we need to keep our UVs in for them to export correctly, and then so we can texture them. So this is where they need to be sitting in. So make sure they're scaled to fit inside here. Don't make them too small. Make them as big as you can and fill the area. I could probably make these bigger, but since I'm only going to use a leather material or cloth material to color them or to texture them inside of Unreal Engine, this scale is probably going to be okay, but we'll see what that looks like. All right, so make sure you do that for all these. I'm going to pause again, and then I'm going to get all mine fixed, come back, just kind of revisit it real quick, and then we'll move on to getting it ready to put the materials on it and then export it. And I'll probably cut this video after we do the UVs, and then I'll pick up a second video showing you how to do the prepping it for export from Maya, and then getting it into Unreal Engine and putting the textures on it, so that the one video isn't like terribly long. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause this now and do that real quick. Okay, welcome back. So now I've got all my UVs adjusted, and we're going to go ahead and talk about that real quick. Basically, like the cushions. So the cushions, you can see that we have this little deformation one here, the one that is deformed from the shape there, and I'm going to miss that. I missed that it's overlapped still. We're going to go ahead and push that over. I want it to be overlapped. And so you don't want your UVs to overlap. Got everything laid out, kind of square these out just a little bit. So because these were pretty square when we got done adjusting them, they came out fairly square. There wasn't a lot of change in them, except this one you should have seen. If you have that deformed end like we do here, you should see where that reshaped your UV there. And when we hit the little, let's go ahead and grab this one actually. And we go to object mode. Let's do that. There we go. Don't want to move it. So when we take a look at the squares, They're actually pretty square. There is a little bit of deforming in them, but that's something we kind of want because we want to have this kind of deforming look to it, like wear for the material when we put that texture on. So I think we're going to be okay with that. Now, a few things we need to clean up here real quick. Didn't name any of these, so let's go ahead and name this. This is going to be my chair, and we'll just call this bottom. This is going to be, see, it would have been easier if I named it right off the bat. So these are going to be legs. And let's go ahead and name it. Okay, so we'll just call this leg. It doesn't really matter which one. Copy that, Control C, Control V for these. And it will automatically rename them for us. Now this is the only time you want to use Control C and Control V. All right, the other thing we got to do is we got to name these cushions correctly. So this should be, instead of arm, because we moved the arms and then we redid this, this is going to be chair, cushion, bottom. Wow. You could call it cushion bottom or something like that. It's an awfully long name. Oh, no. Control C, there we go. And then this is going to be back. All right, so everything should be named. The next thing we're going to do is I want to smooth out, but I only want to smooth out these cushions. Don't want to put a smooth on this because I want that crisp corners on this one. We could bevel it, we could do a couple things, but I'm just going to leave it as a cube right now. But I do want to select these. So I'm going to do a marquee select and just select the sides, the cushions, and the side back, the back piece back there. We got to name that one as well. We missed that. So we'll come back to that in a second. So what we're going to do is with this selected, we don't want to select this. We don't want to select the legs, just those cushions and the sides and back. And we're going to go up here to mesh. We're going to select the option box next to smooth. And my division levels is set at 1. I'm going to leave it at 1. We could significantly smooth this out. And by smoothing, what it does is it adds in more subdivisions into our geometry to give it these edges more of a, instead of these sharp edges that we have right now, kind of for that bevel piece. Because what this is a flat piece all along here, and it's got this line and a slightly more flat piece going all the way around. What we're going to do is we're going to add in some additional division levels. So I'm going to hit apply, and you can see that those additional edges are in there. It's kind of made these bevels a little bit smoother. It's also added some additional geometry here along the side that we didn't have. If we take a look at our chair here, we have significantly more there. And it's also kind of smoothed out this deformation that we had in here for our chair, but I think it's still going to be all right. I'm going to turn off the little grids on my UV editor so I can see it. And I think it's still going to be okay. Yeah, we got a nice little wear there. It's significantly smoother, not as smooth as it could certainly be. And I'm going to move this cushion over just a little bit. It's a little bit too far into that side there. All right, and this is it for this. I'm going to go ahead and find this back, and we're going to name this chair back. I think we can call it that. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to select out here in the empty space. I don't want to select anything. I want nothing selected here, and I'm going to hit Control G. Hitting Control G is going to create this null group. So see, it says null right here. I'm going to double click on that, and I am going to name this I'm just going to name it chair. Okay, and then I'm going to select all of these pieces of my chair, and you can either do it with a marquee select in the scene, or you can do it here in the outliner, and then try that again, middle mouse button, click, use your middle mouse button and click and drag, and drop it there on your chair. So now whenever I select this, everything inside this group for the chair is now selected. All right. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and go into edit with everything selected, delete by type. We're going to delete the history. We're going to freeze the transformations again. And now I'm going to close out the smooth operations. So now with everything UV'd, the next thing we need to do is we need to apply some materials to all of these additional pieces. That's going to be in the next video. Right now the chair is all set for us to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit File, Save Scene, and I will see you in the next video so we can finish up our chair. Maybe if I can find the button here. There we go. All right. I will see you next time.